within recent literature, grip strength has actually been labeled a biomarker of aging. So
Mm-hmm.
because, grip strength is seen as an indication of overall strength. And then it's
Yep.
directly correlated to future risk of functional decline, chronic
Mm-hmm.
disease, and even mortality with regards to
Yeah.
aging in place.
Welcome, Gabby. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you, Sarah. So great to be here.
I'm so curious to talk about Squegg and learn both about the product and just about your story and journey with it. So, I guess to start us off, I know both you and I went to NYU OT.
Yeah.
Where did you go from there to become the CEO of this startup?
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love talking to alumna too. So
Yeah.
I did my master's at NYU's OT program. And then while I was there, I actually decided that I wanted to, take it one step further and also do the clinical doctorate as well. So
Mhm.
I really fell in love with some of the other courses that they offered outside of the standard curriculum. So I took a design and developing assistive technology course. That's really where, I kind of fell in love with this process because I was like, okay, OTs have this amazing skill set, right? To be able to do an
Mhm.
activity analysis, break it down, think about, not only the individual as a whole, but all of the context surrounding and really, create these individualized creative solutions. And then being
Mhm.
partnered with individuals from the engineering school, being able to bring that conceptualization to life and
Yeah.
and really, work together and play to each other's strengths and be able to create some really cool stuff. So from there, I got involved with a company called Level the Curve, and they are individuals who design and develop products specifically for people with spinal cord injuries. And that's where I kind of fell in
Mhm.
love with this concept of user centered design,
Yeah.
which sounds like common sense to me, but it isn't always common practice. So I
No.
learned.
Yeah.
So then I went on and I'm currently gaining my doctorate right now in designing and developing assistive technology, specifically with this kind of background of, very user centered design focused. And
Mhm.
starting with, who's going to be the user, what are their needs, and then being able to build for that specifically.
Mhm.
So then kind of that work there started, and
Yeah.
I started practicing OT and, really fell in love with the profession all over again in a different sense.
Mhm.
And then I started with Squegg as a what they call subject matter expert. So
Mhm.
Squegg itself started off as a general health and wellness product. They were looking to just, track and improve grip strength specifically for racket sports, which interests me as
Yeah.
well because I started off as an athletic trainer actually, so I could appreciate that.
Yeah.
And then these clinical use cases started to come out, one by one organically. So therapists were saying, oh, this would be so great. I could use it in the clinic. And, you know, but Squegg at the time really wasn't built out for that. So
Mhm.
then as a subject matter expert, I was able to kind of give some context and, lead the team to designing the right product for this space, this health tech space.
Wow.
Yeah, so that was really cool. And then as of a couple months ago, I actually got appointed CEO, which is
Whoa.
exciting. So
Yeah.
I can
That's
really help
amazing.
drive, the vision of this company to be able to support healthcare and technology that merge. So
Yeah.
yeah, definitely a
That's
non-traditional path.
amazing. I want to start really big picture thinking
Mhm.
about the product and just talk about grip strength in general. Um, which I feel like right just in my own life, I feel like grip strength keeps popping up like I don't know the importance of it. It's been brought up on our podcast. I've heard just like friends that I'm talking to are hearing about the importance of grip strength connected with longevity.
Yep.
Um, what are you thinking about grip strength now? Like what have you learned about it as you've been immersed in this work?
Yeah. No, that's a great question because, I think initially I was a little hesitant because I was like, okay, grip strength, yes, it's an important assessment, but what is it truly linked to? And I think in the
Mhm.
beginning, I didn't really understand the breadth of all that it's,
Yeah.
correlated to. Um, I was thinking, okay, maybe from biomechanical frame of reference, it's really important for, say, like outpatient hand therapy. But I think the more discussions that I had with experts in the field, we actually have an advisor on our board he's been practicing neurology for like 15 plus years, and
Mm-hmm.
he is also involved in research. And it was actually a conversation that I was having with him where aging in place came up. And we were discussing grip strength, and he truly, truly told me the importance of grip strength. And I was like, okay, I'm really curious here. So I started to do, a literature review, and I found out that within recent literature, grip strength has actually been labeled a biomarker of aging. So
Mm-hmm.
because, grip strength is seen as an indication of overall strength. And then it's
Yep.
directly correlated to future risk of functional decline, chronic
Mm-hmm.
disease, and even mortality with regards to
Yeah.
aging in place. So then that opens up, a lot of other questions, and it says, okay, like how can you accurately assess grip strength, in person or remotely? And it's kind of that frequent measurement that would allow for, monitoring, that would then allow for, that secondary prevention kind of piece. So being able to track
Mm-hmm.
people and catch it early to see, okay, maybe if they need, an evaluation, or if they need some sort of intervention to help prevent all of those, the negative things that I had mentioned there. So I think that,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, grip strength being a biomarker of aging is huge. And
Yeah.
I think that as, the outcomes of these research studies trickle into practice, we're going to see
Mm-hmm.
a lot more grip strength in the future.
Yeah, I remember going into practice and feeling like it was a mundane measure, kind of. But
Mm-hmm.
like as the research has started to come out about it, it is so compelling. It's like this flag that paints a big picture. Yeah, it like gives you a big picture indicator. It's super interesting and yeah, feels like something we should do with every patient for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. And I don't think it should be standalone, right? Like, I don't think that we should say like grip
Yeah.
strength is the end all be all, but I think as a battery of assessments, it can really
Yep.
help to paint an overall picture of how someone's doing.
Yeah,
Um,
for
and it's
sure.
not necessarily even just upper extremity function, right? Like, as I talked about, it's going back into overall function. And um,
Mhm.
you start to see that being included as well within different studies that are tracking just how people are doing over time.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, even with Squegg specifically, there was a researcher out of University of Oklahoma who was looking to track status post-COVID patients longitudinally to get, an overall indication, and they use Squegg as a part of their battery of assessments to give like
Mm.
an overall picture. So I think we're going
Yeah.
to see like a lot more of this as time goes on as well.
Yeah, so I guess that's I you kind of touched on that a little bit, but tell me about how I guess OTs specifically are using Squeg. What are the different kind of use cases that you're seeing?
Yeah, yeah. It's very broad, I will say.
Yeah, yeah, I can
Uh,
imagine.
so I think like the first one that kind of comes to mind, right, is probably like outpatient hand therapy. Um, to have So Squeg not only is able to, capture grip strength, it's also able to help kind of work on grip strength. But
Hmm.
there's different underlying impairment areas that are able to kind of be monitored, I'll say, assessed and
Yeah.
monitored with it as well. So you kind of get an overall picture. So you got reaction time, grip strength, and then we're building more and more. But I think to go back to your original question, for grip strength specifically, there are these use cases for outpatient hands. There's also
Hmm.
neuropopulation that we're seeing a lot of use cases for, specifically with myotonia. So being able to track the release, because the device itself is able to capture 4 to 8 measurements per second currently, and we have a new device that'll be able to
Mm.
capture about 20
Wow.
measurements per second. So it'll paint a nice picture of how someone is, active voluntary control, so gripping and releasing over time. And then
Hmm.
we're also able to set percentages of the max for targets. And then there's
Oh,
different
yeah.
assessments there. So for grip force modulation, that becomes really important with, the neuro population with active voluntary control again. So yeah, so there's a lot of different use cases. We've also
Yeah.
seen it with peds, because grip strength is very important with peds as
Yeah.
a kind of preparatory activity to things like handwriting and so many other functional
Mm-hmm.
activities. But yeah, there's a lot of different use cases, and we're excited to
Yeah.
kind of hear more and more about how people are using them, how OTs are using Squegg, and being able to help build and support those use cases as well. So exciting
Yeah.
stuff on the future.
I didn't look at this functionality. If you can create multiple profiles, like does a therapist have one that they have multiple patients use, or do you see patients themselves purchasing it? I could see either or both working.
Yeah, either. We are actually in development right now for a healthcare provider facing application. So that will be called Squegg Pro. So then we'll have, kind of the
Mm,
core app, which is out there right now, and then we'll have the Pro. And the Pro will really cater to being able to use it clinically. So you'll
okay.
have, each therapist can have their own profile, and then you can add patients or, clients to that list. And then each
Mm-hmm.
of their clients can have a different profile. So then you get, individualized care. And then
Yeah.
within that, there's a lot of exciting features, but I think some of the coolest ones, one, just overall bringing gamification to rehab.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that a lot of times people think gamification, they just say, okay, games. But really, it's so much more than that. It's the ability to send push notifications, the ability to kind of make it fun and engaging, and streaks. And all of these things help with compliance, because it's
Mm-hmm.
engaging and
Yeah.
motivating for the user as well. So
Yeah.
we're really excited to be able to do that. We're also building features into the Squegg Pro that's going to be able to support RTM code billing, so remote therapeutic monitoring.
Yeah. I was wondering, I was starting to, that's where
Yeah,
my mind was going to. Yeah,
yeah.
that's
So
cool.
a lot of the gamification pieces actually help with compliance, and then helping to meet that 16 out of 30 um, metric that you need to be able to bill for RTM. So we're
Mm-hmm.
building all of these features into the Squegg Pro to be able to implement billing for RTM as seamless as possible. Um,
Yeah.
so I think that's really cool. I know there's probably a lot of other features that I'm missing here, but
Yeah, no, that's really cool. And yeah, that paints the big picture. What's on the horizon? What do you see over the next couple of years coming out?
yeah, lots of exciting things, especially
Yeah.
from my perspective, and being able to really drive, this health tech merge and integration.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we can kind of separate it into buckets just for flow wise.
Yeah.
For the device itself, we have a Squegg 2.0 in design and development stage. So we actually found that we wanted to increase the size of the Squegg device itself to fit 90% of individuals like hand sizes, and for that we're using universal design principles. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're also creating a plugin attachment that will be able to monitor or assess and monitor pinch. So it'll support,
Oh, yeah. I was
yeah,
wondering
so
about that.
it'll support, lateral pinch, three jaw, and then tip to tip prehension.
Cool.
And then, so that's from the device side. And we're also going to make a stand for it. So this way, an individual can assess pinch at home without need for someone else to hold it for them, like a caregiver to hold it for them. So we're
Oh,
thinking
cool.
through these things and
Yeah, that's
designing for it.
amazing. Yeah.
And then on the software side of things, we're constantly working to create games that are now AI integrated. So it's going to take a percent of uh, the individual's most recent assessment for maximal grip strength, and then automatically change the game parameters to be able
Hmm.
to find a just right challenge. So it's going to take
Yeah.
live, user input, and be able to adjust from there, so that it's not too difficult, not too easy. We're right in that sweet spot. So we're really
Yeah.
just looking to be able to support therapists in finding that just right challenge, and
Mm-hmm.
save time and energy as well. So that'll be
Yeah.
cool. And then We're creating games specifically for, like I said, force modulation, for grip endurance, so sustained grip as well, and that will be sustained pinch as well. And
Mm-hmm.
then the new device is actually going to have a gyroscope as well, so we're looking to expand potentially into range of motion
Oh,
for
wow.
the
Very
upper
cool.
extremity too. So lots of really cool things on the horizon.
Yeah.
And I think that the Squegg Pro is definitely needed to be able to support a lot of those features as well. So we're
Yeah.
excited for that. Definitely more instruction as well with regards to the
Mm-hmm.
different assessments as they get built out to kind of
Yeah.
support that remote assessment without the therapist being there. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's where it's helpful, right? Because I've done grip and pinch assessment. I can't even tell you how many times. So being able to kind of, take my voice and the cues that I give and create that into a video, or right now we have pictures and descriptions to follow the guidelines, like the ASHT guidelines. So to be able to do
Mm-hmm.
that is really cool. Because we've seen, how important grip strength is with research, we're
Mm.
expanding to be able to support researchers with the data that they need. So
Hmm.
we're doing individual consults where we'll sit down and understand the researchers, study design and their needs for the data. And
Yeah.
then we've created, we have a great tech team, amazing, truly. So we've
Yeah.
created separate applications just for monitoring that data collection process, because sometimes researchers don't want the individual to be able to play all the games because it could mess with, they could wind
Yeah.
up
Yeah.
increasing their grip strength, and that's
Yes.
not what
Yeah.
they want us, and we don't want to mess with the data. So, we're excited to kind of explore this research and biomarker opportunity a little bit more and create kind of custom plans for some pretty big research studies that are coming out. So
Yeah.
we've had
Yeah.
a couple conversations recently and are gaining traction on that end. So hopefully in the next year's time, we'll have some really cool publications to share as well.
Yeah. Wow, that's just incredible. I love this device. I love how something that like a device that bridges us from rehab to then just being like a wellness device. Like the whole population could be working on their grip strength, and it's not something that you would just use for a 4-week window. It's something that could stick with you. And um, I always think about that with therapy. Like, how can people keep going on like the path that they've been on? And this is something that could really stick with someone. Um, yeah, and can serve them over the long term. So I love that about it. And then I just love hearing your story and the team and the user friendliness of it. Like you said at the beginning, like you can definitely tell when you encounter a tech company that isn't taking that into account because it is complex, it is hard. There's so many considerations. It's so easy to lose focus of the user and stuff. I know that from just running a small business. Like
Yeah.
yeah, it really does take like the right team and the magical circumstances for that to all come together. So I love that you found that and are doing that.
Yeah, thank you. I
Yeah.
think you did touch on a really important piece too, which is kind of the continuum of care, right? So
Yeah.
we envision this being not only just used specifically for therapy, but like you said, then transitioning to general health and wellness. But then
Hmm.
also as the user, the individual goes from maybe a therapy setting to at home. And then depending on their age, if you want to look to like aging in place, then they also, the more that they play these games, the data is actually being collected and they can
Yeah.
track longitudinally over time. And if, say, they are experiencing a decline, that's when
Hmm.
maybe intervention can then be reintroduced.
Yeah.
And it can be, to help support people age in place as opposed to, you know, becoming to a point where they need other interventions, right? Like if we get it early
Yeah.
on and we can help support through those different processes, it could be truly invaluable. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think people should get their grip strength checked at every checkup visit with your
Yeah, for
healthcare provider.
sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, because our minds are so good at like spinning stories of like, oh, I was just tired or yeah, but when you have that data that can I don't know, help piece things together in such a concrete way. So that's
Yeah.
super cool. Wow. Well, thank you for sharing with us today. This was super fun and yeah, great to not only learn about the device, but to hear your story and all that you're doing with your OT degree. And I don't know, paints an inspirational picture for us for sure.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful. Also, just great to have this, conversation with an alumna as well. So
Yeah, super fun. Awesome. Well, thank you, Gabby.
cool. Thank you so much.